Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. So glad you all decided to join us again for another exciting episode. Just some updates going on here at Red Tool House. Now, hang on one second. So, never fails as I go to record these intros. I try to do them right up to the point of release, so the updates are relevant. But it appears to be piano practice night tonight as well. And it kind of reminds me of this is going to date me, but if there's a movie called The Villain back in 1979 and had Kirk Douglas, Arnold Schwarzenegger, just a whole bunch of actors in it. And there's a scene where Nervous Elk, the Indian, has to explain that we can't attack because of the drums being played. And that's what reminds me of I can't record because of the piano being played.
Well, what, Chief? He's going to set the Indian back at least 50 years.
I don't know which is worse, him or those damn drums. This is the plan of attack. Now go over it with your troops.
Okay, Chief.
Get brave. We attack at dawn. Chief, why don't we attack now when they're off guard? Indians never attack till dawn. No, why? Because at night, Indians too busy pounding on those dumb
drums. Anyway, if you guys haven't, that's an oldie but a goodie. That kind of shows you that I have about a 13-year-old sense of humor there. Anyway, getting on with updates. Really, things are going well here with our pigs. I'm pretty certain I have two that have settled from our breeding. Definitely know that my one sow, Merida, she's proven sow, she is settled. And then my second one, Mercy, I'm pretty certain she settled. She actually, we were out of town and we got back. She had just a little bit of swelling, but never a standing heat. So I'm going to check her again here as her next cycle comes around. So hoping that we'll have two sows that have settled and be ready to farrow in mid-November. One more update is in the month of October, I believe it's October 11th and 12th, we'll be in Front Royal, Virginia for the Homesteaders of America conference. So if you happen to be in that area, if you're planning on going to that conference, that's more homesteading, and obviously not directly related to pastured pigs, but there's some overlap there. So we'll be there. We'll be in that part of Virginia for that weekend to enjoy that conference. Well, on today's interview, we have Joseph Baeten from Greater Lakes Farm, and he's got a really nice setup, really nice operation, got a good website too. He's kind of got his digital marketing put together there well. So really good conversation with him. So let's dive right into that discussion. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast. I am your host, Troy McClung. Again, just excited that you guys take the time to listen. The goal of our podcast is to talk about all things pastured pigs. And today I have a guest from the Great White North up in Wisconsin. I have Joseph Baeten from Greater Lakes Farms, and he's going to come on our show today and talk a little bit about his operation up there in Wisconsin. So welcome, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Troy. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So obviously Wisconsin, I think we've already talked about this a little bit before we started recording. You are a Packers fan, correct?
I am a Packers fan. Absolutely.
There's no getting away from it living in Wisconsin. So.
Nope. Absolutely.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and tell us a little bit about your setup. Let's dive right into that if you don't mind. Let's talk about your operation there at Greater Lakes Farm. What do you have going on up there as far as pigs go?
Sure. Yeah. So we're located about 20 minutes south of Green Bay. We kind of got a polyculture farm here, and pasture pigs is certainly part of that. We're in the northeast part of Wisconsin, and it's heavily, it was impacted heavily by the glaciers, and our geology here is quite variable across our farm, and that makes things a little bit different. We have a total, we run 50 acres. At our home site here is where we have the pigs. It's about 15 acres. Right now, currently our operation is basically buy-in feeders, and we've been raising them through the summer and butcher in the fall. Now, due to a couple of reasons, we're going to, starting this fall, keeping a couple of them, and we're going to start doing a farrow to finish operation and stop buying in feeders. So that's kind of something on our radar. Most people, when they think Wisconsin, especially northeast Wisconsin where we're at, they think flat farmland. We have a little bit of elevation change where we're at, a lot of 12 to 16% slopes. I know, Troy, that's nothing compared to what you're dealing with down in West Virginia there. So.
I'd kill for a 13% slope.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but for us, that's a mountain, right? Here up in eastern Wisconsin. So compared to, a lot of the other farmland around us just a few miles away, it's, 2% slopes, if that. So we do have some elevation changes, and we kind of take advantage of that as we kind of have been designing our operation here. So at our home site here, our soils here, it really impacts on how we farm. It's mostly a silty sand, which is kind of rare. We're on a old sand seam, and there's maybe about 200 acres of it, and we just happen to be on that. That helps us out. We actually get probably an extra month of pasture season because of that, and just the way the landscape's set up. So that gives us kind of an advantage. We own another parcel, a 40 over, and it's a heavier, silty clay, and it just takes a while for that to dry out and get going in the spring, and can get impacted in the fall depending on what things get. So we kind of take those things into consideration as we, operate our farm here.
So do you have a lot of standing water on farm usually throughout the year?
At our home here, we do have a perennial stream that goes through it. But even in some of the big rainstorms that we get, we have been getting more frequent, larger storms, no standing water, and I love it. It's great. So, but what we do have is underneath the sand, we kind of have a ridge here. We do have a lot of large spring complexes on the home site. A little over half of it's open and pasture land. The rest is kind of a cedar area along the perennial, and a lot of that dotted with large springs, and it's not really usable for the most part for pasture. Nor long to at this point.
All right. So water access is not a problem. It's just you don't have to worry about a lot of it standing around in your pastures.
Yeah, right. You dry up pretty quick for us. It's kind of nice. We don't. We tank out all our water to our animals, and it's easy to get on there even during a rain event and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Okay. So how long have you been doing pigs?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I grew up on a dairy farm, of course, being in Wisconsin.
Right.
I grew up in a dairy farm. We raised pigs. We didn't do pasture style, growing up. We've been doing pigs. Now this is our third year of pasture pigs. As I, bought my own land and was looking into, I wanted to get back into raising animals. I really kind of liked this idea and fell in love with the concept of, rotationally grazing and pasturing our pigs. And it's been working out great for us so far. So we're on year 3 of doing it rotationally on pasture, but I've been doing it. We had pigs pretty much all our lives. So
yeah. All right. So you'd mentioned being a polyculture. What other livestock do you have?
Sure. Prior to the pigs, we started with broiler chickens, like a lot of folks do, and that's been growing. So we have, our broiler chickens. We also do turkeys for meat, and we usually, butcher those in the fall. We have a small flock of laying hens. I didn't want to get too much in the eggs, at least not at this point, enough to sustain my family and maybe sell a few dozen here or there, give away. And then this year we added a small flock of sheep, and so kind of growing that, easing it into it. But kind of the staples of our farm has been our broiler chickens, and then our pasture pigs. And the other ones we, can only take on so much. And sometimes, with this year we, our broilers did well. and we've been selling a lot of those. We put more of an emphasis on growing that portion, as well as the pigs. We continue to double the amount of pigs we raise every year. So that's kind of the growth so far up here with what we've been doing.
Yeah. So what's your standard head size? I mean, what size is your herd for your pigs usually?
Sure. So this year we did 10. We started off small just to get the feel for it. We put up the fence, and they didn't want to go with a large number and didn't know how they'd sell off. And then we slowly been doubling that every year. Now we're at 10 this year that we're doing.
All right. So is the farm operation, is this a side hustle? Do you have a day job? Do you have additional help on farm?
This is a side hustle at this point. It's obviously the dream to make it full time one day, right?
Yeah.
I kind of have it set up. I have my wife here, and then we have our 3 young kids, 6, 4, and almost 1. So I got a bunch of little ones running around. And they're good helpers. They love it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But when we started this, my wife, she comes from the big city, Twin Cities area. She wasn't, too acclimated with farming. And one of the goals I had getting into this, I always loved raising animals. I call it debt-free farming. It's not quite that, but the only debt we really have is on the land.
Yeah.
I don't have equipment debt and things like that. And that was we done that intentionally. So to ease the strain on us, things can get stressful on some days. I'm sure you know that, Troy, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That has been, it hindered growth. There were certainly opportunities, and I feel like this year especially we've been saying more no's than yeses at some point. But hopefully it continues to accelerate and grow for us here. But that's something we kind of keep in the back of our mind as we kind of grow our little operation.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's prudent for people to look and say, okay, what am I going to invest in? Am I going to dive into this head first? That requires me to make a lot of financial decisions, whether it be some debt, draining savings, doing those type of things to expand rapidly, or kind of do the slow crawl method and allow the operation to pay for that expansion. Yeah.
Well, we even have it, when I went into it too, we didn't even use our savings or anything like that. I had another little side hustle, as you put it, Troy. We have a small little wood shop, and a lot of the proceeds from that actually went to funding the farm to kind of keep all our personal, expenditures on the same path and not put a burden on any of that stuff. So that kind of helped us out.
All right.
Any of the financial systems as we got into it. So.
Oh yeah, I could talk woodworking for you for an hour or more. So we'll have to save that for another discussion. But yeah, that's great. That's excellent. All right. So what you're talking about your operation there? So you purchase weaners. Are you looking for specific breeds from your supplier? Or are you kind of just getting what you can get?
It's up to this point has been getting what I can get. So I've raised 3 different types of breeds now here, and over those 3 years, this year we got Tamworths. We kind of found someone selling some feeders, and they were good. We've been on places. There's a number of folks selling feeders around here, but somewhere I'd go and walk away. I wasn't too impressed with their quality. We were really happy with these Tamworths that we bought this year. It's actually our first year raising Tamworths. In the past years, we primarily raised Berkshires, and I had one Berkshire our first year that I've raised. For some reason, the ones last year, they like to jump. I'd never seen a pig jump like I've seen last year. So they jump over the fence, and I had to make some improvements to our fencing in order to contain them a little bit better. Once my wife and I were chasing them around on her anniversary, she gave me that look. She didn't say it, but it was either her or the pigs. And make improvements.
Said, but honey, I really like bacon.
Yeah. No, I got it just from the look, but yeah. So we've kind of made some changes, and even the Tamworths, that we got now this year, I was impressed from where I bought them. It was actually from an older gentleman. He was mid to upper 60s, and it sounded like it was his last year farrowing pigs too. He was kind of dwindling out of it. He had a nice little direct marketing farm, kind of like what we do here. And then kind of because of that, we struggled a little bit here and there trying to find someone with good feeders. I had a good person lined up in the past. contact him this fall. He supports 4-H, which is great stuff. So I kind of get the last the last of what he has left over, and they got picked through pretty well. And this year I decided to try something different.
Yeah.
On this guy, because he's getting out of farrowing, I thought, well, this might be an opportunity for me to start farrowing my own pigs, and just kind of building, my own herd and selective breeding towards, what best fits our landscape and what performs best out here with us.
Definitely.
So that's kind of definitely a long-term goal we have.
So are you getting his breeding stock, or are you just saying that since there's going to be a little bit of a vacuum there, you're going to go ahead and move into that farrowing process?
I'm just gonna, he talked to me because I told him I was interested in farrowing. He tried to convince me to buy his sows, and he hasn't given me a price. But I think ultimately what I decided, we're gonna keep 2 of the sows we have now, and then that'll turn into our breeding stock.
Yeah.
Going into this fall, so I'll breed. So our first batch will be for the spring. That's our goal that we have planned right now.
Yeah. Will you plan on keeping a boar, or are you going to do AI, or what's your process?
I want to do AI. I would have no problem getting a boar, but then it's another thing on the farm that you got to manage and plan for. And time is certainly of value to all of us, and I'd like to take that and focus it on the farrowing and the young care and all that, rather than worrying about that extra water, that extra pen, all that stuff that would have to be put into place for a boar. So
yeah.
I'm looking at AI at this point. I think that's what you do at your place, right, Troy?
I do. Yeah, we do AI, and I think the benefit and the value for us is just like you said, the size of our operation. Yeah, we're small enough where the extra mouth to feed. Excuse me. The extra mouth to feed with the boar is something that you got to keep an eye on. Of course, keeping them separated with our operation would be an additional concern. But as we try to build our herd and figure out exactly what genetics we want and have more control over that, that's where I like the AI, being able to bring those genetics in and try to build a herd. If I was a much larger operation, then it would start to become cost prohibitive to, if you're going to be dosing sow after sow after sow, that it would make sense then to have a boar on farm. But I do appreciate the AI. In fact, I was breeding this morning two of my sows. It's that time, so it's nice to be able to just go to the cooler, grab the straws and the and the product, and go down there and hopefully have successful breeding. So
that's exactly what we're thinking. With 2 sows, it doesn't economically make sense to have a boar at this time, especially if we're doing it for profit.
Yeah,
kind of looking at the breakdown.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear.
So with your finishing operation, are you getting your piglets brought in at spring and then you're finishing in the fall, or are you overwintering up there?
It's spring and then they're out late fall, early winter is when we bring them in and get butchered. That's how we've been doing it for the last 3 years here. So, and that's, again, we started that way just to get ourselves familiar with it. How would they, pigs work with the fences and all that, and try to avoid that overwintering. Here in Wisconsin, it gets a little cold sometimes during the winter. So
yeah, exactly. I'm sure that's definitely a concern. And again, that's like you said, as your operation evolves, when you have a sow on a breeding stock, you're going to have to accommodate them in the wintertime. But as of right now, you can skip those harsh winters and not have to worry about a sacrificial area in the pasture.
Right.
Well, speaking of pastures, what's your setup right now? You'd mentioned rotational. What's your regimen on rotating your pigs throughout? Do you integrate them with your other livestock, or do you kind of keep them separate?
Right now we keep them separate. Although I've been kind of looking into that. We do want to get into a diverse rotation down the road. That's what we do with our chickens and lambs right now. And we have a few goats as well, where we have multi-species rotating either together or after one another. I'd like to figure out some good combinations, come either after the pigs or before them or something like that. But, our setup we have right now, our paddock, our main pasture that we have developed for the pig right now, it's kind of along the contour, along one of our hillsides where we have it. The fence is set up. It's actually, the perimeter is a 3-strand electric wire. that's how we did it for our first 1.5 years. And then, like I said, you had those pigs that could jump, and they kept jumping over and getting out. So what we've done, and then we would divide little sections on that elongated strip with other strands of electric wiring, and then we, hit an area hard and move it on. Intensive rotation is kind of what our goal is to practice.
Yeah.
They would be there. It depends on the way we design our paddocks. It's really all based on the feeder. The feeder dictates on when you move the pigs. So obviously, when they're smaller, eating less, they may be on a paddock longer than when they're larger. And you got to find that sweet spot with how large your paddocks are, to how much feed you put in the feeder, where they don't, they're out there enough where they eat down the grasses to, you don't want to go all the way to the point where they turn into a dirt lot or something like that before you move them on. So, and we figured that out pretty quick. Actually, the number we use, and it's probably different for many other folks, it's about 2,000 pounds per half acre. And I think when I calculated that in a lot of podcasts and all the other stuff I read when we were getting into this, I think that came from that calculation from what Joel Soliton does with his pigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't quote me on that stuff, but I think that's how I came up with that number.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I would say that sounds very similar to his
really
model.
Good.
Yeah,
exactly.
So in that process, though, you've got that. So you're using that 3-wire fence as a backbone fence, and you're just building your paddocks kind of arbitrarily as you go through the age of your piglets.
So that's how we were doing it, and now we actually, a year and a half ago, we bought. When we were having issues with them getting out of that, and I think the reason they were getting out is they learned once, and the pig is smart, so they'll continue doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas the first year, the pigs, we had no problem with that 3 strands. I'm sure we could go back to it, but we actually use pig netting now.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we move along. I mean, it's pretty much pig proof. I have no problems with them getting out of it. It's electrified. It's a little more difficult to work with, but I sleep a little easier at night. So
yes, yeah,
no room there. So
yeah, that's one of those infrastructure investments that is sometimes a little hard to absorb straight away, especially if you'll be buying a lot of it, and the issues, the manual labor elements of that. But you're right, as far as security of the animal and just knowing that they're not going to be getting out, that definitely makes that investment worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about your feed setup. So, how are you feeding out? Are you feeding out conventional? Do you have non-conventional means?
For the most part, what we got, it's mostly conventional. We work at the local feed mill here, and we get pretty fresh grinds from them. They got a nice hog feed that they have. We really like it. It works well. It's priced really well. It's interesting hearing, some of the perspectives from other folks around the nation on your podcast and others. We have a lot of dairy farming in our area. I think it might be the top, if not one of the top areas with that density with dairy cows. There's a lot of feed mills here, so it's not, you don't have to drive far to find one. So having access to feed isn't really a problem for us. So that's nice and convenient for us. But we have just a big round feeder where we fill it up and then keep an eye on it until they eat it down, and then once it's out or nearly out, we move on to the next paddock. What I have noticed with the Tamworths versus the pigs we raised in the past, they graze and go after the pasture much more aggressively, and I feel like as they get older too, they're grazing more and more. And usually when they get older, they'd be eating the grain or the feed faster and be moved more quickly. And I think it's actually slowing down because it seems like they're grazing more in the pasture. In our last paddock, we moved them off a few days ago. It looks like sheep went through there and they just grazed down to the ground. I mean, it was pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy with how they're foraging on our pastures. Yeah,
that's great. That really helps keep a lot of money in the wallet there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So I assume just doing with your conventional feed, you're not dealing with organic or non-GMO type of stuff right now?
Not right now. I got a customer base, and one of the things we do over winter is we'll send out a survey on potential ways to change things or get input from our customers. And I shot out the survey, and one of the questions was would you pay more for organic? That's a pretty fair assumption. You got pay more for the feed and all that, it would be a little more challenging to get that. There's not too much that around here. I think there was about 10% of our customers that said yes, they would. So there wasn't much of a demand for that.
Yeah.
So at this time, we're not really thinking organic. I did have a conversation a few days ago with our feed mill about switching over to non-GMO. It would take a little more planning ahead for ordering it, but they could do it, and I think that's a route we're moving down in the future. We want to get there. All non-GMO is our plan.
Yeah. Well, and that's I'll go back to your survey point, because I think this is so important for people to think about and consider when they're doing direct sales, when they're selling directly to consumers. This keeping in touch with your client base and understanding what your clients are looking for, because you just don't know the element of fringe clients you have that say, well, I like buying from Joe, but if he only did this, I'd buy more. And again, if you don't have those conversations, you don't have a way to get that information from, you're not going to necessarily know where you need to make adjustments. So I love that. I love that you're doing that. Again, as a marketing guy, I can't extol the virtues of communicating with your customers, having that email marketing list, having those opportunities to communicate, and just give your customers an opportunity to respond, to say, well, hey, yeah, if you did this, I'd buy more off of you. Or I've got 5 friends that if you did this, then I would, I'm sure they would buy. So, kudos to you for taking the time to do that and listening to your customers.
Yeah. And, we always, and it's true, the customers, they shape our farm. It's their farm just as much as ours. And that's the message we kind of convey on to them. And I will say that my wife, she's also in marketing. She's a marketing director for a company here. So I do have a little advantage there. I know too much about SEO and all these other social media stuff that I wouldn't know without her, I guess. So I got to give her credit there. So.
All right. So did she build your website? Because it's a very nice site.
I take the first stab at it, and then she tweaks it from there.
There you go. That's right. You're the rigger, she's the trigger.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
That's right.
Well, you talked about having a day job, so let's talk about what's a typical farm day look like for you as far as your chores go. How do you balance that, the farm activities and the day job?
Sure. So during the summer months and most of our growing season, because right now we just bring in feeders, and even the broilers and turkeys, those are seasonal as well. My day job, I work 9-hour days, 4 days a week typically, depending on how busy things can be. And then I burn up some vacation, things like that. So I have one day off during the week when the family's gone, where I can get the major things done around here. But on a typical day, work day, I'll be out at 5 o'clock doing just morning chores, typically just checking up on things. We do getting the feed out there for most of our animals typically in the evening, with the exception of the chickens. We get the feed out in the evening if feed needs to go out and water and things like that. We restock. So morning's pretty easy, and then I'll get back, get out your 5. It's about a half hour or so, and then head out to work, be gone for 10, 11 hours, and then in the afternoon, depending if things have to be moved, it could be an hour to a couple hours of work in the afternoon. So,
yeah, all right.
That's kind of a typical day, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come back to something you talked about there and have you expand on something. So, with your rotational process using the electrified hog netting, obviously your feeder, your bulk feeder, that's a no-brainer. You're moving that on. How are you handling your water situation for your pigs?
Yeah, for our water, we got a big stock tank. It's like a livestock stock tank, and then it's designed that it has a little pan underneath it with a flotation device in it. So as the pan empties, the flotation device goes down and then it fills back up from the water stock tank.
Yeah. Okay.
And it holds 100 gallons. It does the trick. I might have to replace the float after this year. It's been 3 years, but it still works well. It's big and bulky, so I can put cool well water in there. It'll hold its coolness throughout the day, even on a 90-degree day, and we've had a number of those these last few weeks here. So they get that nice, cool, refreshed water. Right now, we are working with some of our local, the local NRCS technician, and then we have a state grazing specialist I'm working with as well. And we're designing new pasture paddocks that ultimately be pigs, and then we're going to be putting in water lines as well. So that's a fall project, if not next spring, that we're hoping to work towards.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. Do you do any rain catchment or anything on farm right now?
No, none of that right now. Our 15 acres we're on, it's kind of a longer parcel. It's a 40 deep, as I put it. So where all our pastures are, we don't have any buildings really near it. So if we collected the water, we'd have to haul it back there regardless.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, great. Yeah, definitely. That's a good setup. All right. Well, going forward, I know you've talked about some of these a little bit, but let's expand on them. If you looking forward, what are some short-term goals you have with your pig operation? I know we talked about farrowing operation and growth. Where do you see that growth going in the next couple of years?
Oh, sure. So with that, one thing we've been fortunate this year is we got into kind of the retail restaurant side of sales, primarily with our chicken. We haven't done any of the pork, but we have a lot of our chefs interested in our pork. And I won't have anything till this fall. So my goal with that is I need to expand our pig pasture, but we're going to go into this fall and we're going to start farrowing over winter year to hopefully have our first batch next year. In short term, over the next few years, what I'd like to do is, working with chefs, they want, certainly a consistent product from you and try to keep things in stock as well. And our goal is to, have two sows going in this fall and hopefully pick up another two for next spring. I'd have to, this is something we're researching pretty heavily, where we'd be farrowing about 4 times a year, and then having, being able to butcher then for, have pigs ready to butcher to put in the freezer, so we have constant supply, and, to continue to supply our chefs kind of year round and always have something out on pasture ready to go if needed, right? So
yeah.
I think that's kind of our short-term goal over the next couple of years here. And then doing, 2 farrows with 2 sets of sows, I think is our ultimate goal over the next year, really. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of those things. That's the challenge when you take on direct sales to restaurants and those type of elements where they want that product on a regular basis. They want consistency there. So that does change your operation. You think about it. If you're going to go to 4 farrowings, then you've got different management. You're going to have different pastures of different age. Piglets going to be rotating through, and that's a challenge. And of course, that just requires you to get the infrastructure in place.
Right.
Okay. So, you're also selling? So you're selling retail with your chickens. Are you selling just wholes and halves when it comes to your pigs right now, or are you actually selling cuts to end users?
Just wholes and halves right now up to this point. But like I said, with the retail, they're asking about it, so we're going to get into, the cuts. Starting this fall with this batch, and then even offering the cuts retail to. Our home deliveries that we do, and any farm pickups, hopefully have that available to diversify a little bit. We have a number of folks that they'll take a half pig, they'll take a whole pig, but some that have told me they don't have the freezer space or they don't want that much meat. So we might even, one thing that we're really interested in doing and that we're looking to design is just like a pork box where it's 20 pounds of pork. That I think might be reasonable for, a different group of customers out there potentially for us for a pork.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of working through it. It's tough. We can look at, some of our past, butcher cut lists and how things have pieced out and all that. I don't want to overcommit on bacon and pork chops and not have any of those left for certain parts of where we market and sell our products. So it's something we're still kind of trying to work out, and that's what I'm being cautious on the retail side of things as well. I don't want to overcommit, and then come midwinter or something not have any product either. So it's slow growth for us at this point, but we're hoping to get there.
Yeah, and again, as we mentioned before, there's definitely nothing wrong with the slow method. The slow crawl really keeps you from stubbing your toe too hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, what about your processing situation? Do you have access to good processors? I assume up in Packer country you'd have some options there.
Yes, we have good access to them. They make brats all over the place if you've ever been to Wisconsin. So we love our brats. So yeah, actually, probably within, our processor we use for our pig, 20, 25 minutes away, USDA, all that, so we can sell to restaurants probably within an hour's distance. And we may look to some other ones to see if they offer other options. That's one thing we might do, is push our processor a little harder for, certain seasonings or cuts or things like that. Especially, the chefs are already pushing those questions on me, and I don't have any pig for them right now at this point. But, within an hour of where we are, we probably have a good half dozen to dozen processors. There's a number of them around, plenty in supply.
Yeah. Wow. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Another advantage is, there's a lot of folks that, raise up a few pigs or have a couple of steers or something like that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of processors around. We have seen a couple recently, really good ones where they have a nice meat market attached to it, where they've completely gone away from doing custom cuts for people, and they only do processing for their own shop, their own little meat shop.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why they've taken that trend. Some really good ones, and it's made me nervous. Hopefully that doesn't become the norm. I know some folks have mentioned they got to drive 4 hours, and that would be a big task.
Yeah.
If we had to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, and usually what I do here when I'm getting close to wrapping up, Joe, is there anything particular you'd like our audience to hear about your operation? Is there anything else, longer term goals you're looking toward?
Well, the long term goal is to be doing this full time. I guess maybe one other unique thing we do, part of our feeding regimen, we try and do antibiotic, non-medicated products as well. Pigs is a little challenging at this point. You can't buy in feeders from other farms without them going through a certain vaccination process.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that's just Wisconsin, and I think Iowa and Minnesota also have that rule. I think it came in effect 2016 or 2017. I don't know if that's something you have out in West Virginia.
Yeah, no,
that's one of the reasons we want to get. We don't. Okay, yeah, you have to vaccinate before you sell off farm. That's a rule we have in place here, and that's one of the reasons. One of the top reasons we want to go to farrowing as well, farrow to finish. And one of the things we do, if we do have a pig that is sick, we may give it a shot in order to, bring it back. But it's been probably 2 years since we've had to do that. We actually, because we have a wood shop, we take and we make charcoal out of it.
Yeah.
And then we actually feed that for pigs. And I know through some of the initial research, it's like a natural remedy, or it helps pigs with their digestive and just health and all that. And I don't know if that's helping the pigs or not. And we just continue to do it because we have healthy pigs. The batch we have this year, it's like candy to them. I throw in a bucket every time we move them, and they just devour it. So it's cheap and easy to do. And I don't know if that's helping from the health side of things, kind of a natural way at, keeping them healthy and all that. So
yeah,
I don't know if you have any experience doing that or not.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because talking about disease control and those type of things, another episode that we'll be doing with specifically talking about disease control in pigs. But you kind of fall into some of these things that you've always done, and I don't necessarily have any metrics on my farm as how I measure that. But one thing we always would do is we collect pumpkins. We have a lot of friends that are in the urban areas, suburban areas, that they have their fall decorations, and when they're done with them, they're like, "Hey, you want these pumpkins? Sure, throw them in the back of my truck. I'll feed them my pigs." The pigs love pumpkins, but knowing that the pumpkin seed is supposedly a good natural dewormer. So using that and realize, okay, I don't, we're closed loop. I don't have worm issues on the farm, and haven't for years. So it's like, okay, do I attribute that to the pumpkin seeds, or is it something else? But you mentioned the charcoal. It's the same thing. As I move my pigs around, sometimes I'll move them into areas. We're trying to clear land in West Virginia, so as we've cleared some areas and we've had some smaller brush piles, we'll have that remaining charcoal, some of the ash and things, and the pigs absolutely love it. I mean, they'll go in and just vacuum every bit of that up, and it's like you can almost you can barely tell that you had a fire in this spot, because they go through and get all in it. And what's hilarious in the wintertime, of course, if we have a brush fire, then they'll be laying around it like a pack of hot dogs warming up, and then as they get bolder, as the fire goes down, they'll end up laying on the ashes at night just to stay warm and enjoy that heat. So yeah, it is interesting to see. It's one of those things you say, well, I don't know that I can measure that to say this charcoal is definitely helping with health, but why stop? It's there's been good reports of how beneficial that could be. So why stop?
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you observed that as well. And it's one of the things I couldn't tell you if it's the charcoal helping out, but things are healthy, so I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the old if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right, Joe. Well, one question I always ask everyone in closing is, what is your best experience or favorite part of raising pigs on pasture?
Oh, sure. Probably one of the things, and it's why I wanted to, get into having a farm with my family, is I wanted to kind of get my kids engaged to it. And I really love, seeing when they come out and helping me, and now they're starting to take over the chores. I'm not allowed to do certain things anymore. It's got to be their job. So, which I'm totally happy with. Just I want my kids to go through that experience. I think that, one thing I really enjoy about, raising pigs and having our little farm here. And I hope they continue to enjoy it as much as I do. I think it builds, good work ethic and things like that I think, as a parent is a valuable thing. So, in addition to all the other things we love about it too, just being out here, having land and watching animals grow and working with them. So,
Yeah, and I enjoy that. That's what I love. I just love talking to people that are farming and doing these type of things all over the country, and just hear all these different experiences. But you touched on a point that's really dear to me. You think about the majority of kids now in their generation really don't get to experience a lot of what our kids take for granted on a daily basis. The interaction with the land, interaction with the animals, seeing creation, just play out before your eyes there, and just being able to interact with all that stuff. And my boys are teenagers now, so they're kind of looking at, okay, what's life like off farm, but they still have that appreciation for what they've learned on farm. And then so many people talk, oh wow, I can't believe you've got pigs, you've got this, you've got that. Wow, man, I'd love to do that. And they're like, what? I thought everybody did this. So yeah, it is a very unique perspective for the kids, and like you say, some really good life lessons, some a lot of knowledge they can glean from the farm that they're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Yep.
Well, all right, Joe, man, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this evening. For those that want to find out more about your farm, where can they find you on the World Wide Webs?
Sure, yes. We got our website, just GreaterLakesFarms.com. That's Greater with an ER, then Lakes Farms. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. My wife manages a lot of that. We'll put posts out there, just farm updates. So, our contact information is on our website. If anybody wants to reach out to us, we're happy to talk. So we certainly promote and encourage others to do what we're doing. So I think it's a great thing to have in communities. So
excellent. Well, all right. Well, I hope you have a great evening. I hope you've got your farm chores done already, and if not, hope they wrap up soon. And again,
I'm done.
All right, cool. All right. Well, again, appreciate you coming on, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Troy.
All right. Take care.
Well, appreciate Joseph coming on the podcast. Again, really good discussion. I like what he's got going on up there in Wisconsin. If you want to know more information about his operation, as he mentioned, we'll list that in the show description so you can find all of his contact links there. Well, we've got another batch of interviews coming up. Excited that we've got some kind of a little bit of a change in format for a couple of the interviews. We have some people that are just new into the pastured pig world, and we're going to talk to them about their first experiences, their first year or two in this area of farming, and get their experiences and be able to share what they've run into so far, some of the challenges and some of their successes. So that'll be a string of interviews coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Hope you have a great week and a good time on the farm. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast, or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.